Today, I am delighted to be joined by Elaine Haynes. She's the president and CEO of KaloCyte. Um, 30 years, I think it is, Elaine, in healthcare leadership.
And then some, yes.
Involved in a lot of kind of commercial development of really complex kind of pharmaceuticals and everything. And, in a series of talks with the leadership of at KaloCyte. It's great to have you here, and thanks for joining me and us.
Great to be here, Glenn. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
Um, Obviously, I've already spoken to one of your co-founders and chief scientific officer, Alan Doctor, and we've gone into a lot of the science and the incredible work that KaloCyte has done to this point. And I
Yeah.
think it's really good to have yourself on board to discuss, more of the leadership and the business side of things, because I'm very aware, you're probably even more acutely aware that there's a lot of difference between the science and the commercial side, a lot more. But before we get
Yes.
into that, I just drag it all the way back into kind of your journey into leadership in the healthcare space. You know, as potted history as you'd like, that would be great to see, to the point now of how you came to lead KaloCyte. That would be great.
Great. So, going back to university days, I'm a pharmacist by training. Always loved the chemistry and a little bit of biology side of healthcare, but I knew I didn't want to be hands-on, and I like to cook. So I appreciated just the chemistry and the mixing that pharmacy offered. I specialized in nuclear pharmacy, which is a very complex niche area of a pharmacy that is really coming into the spotlight these days with theranostics and some of the therapeutic radiopharmaceuticals that are available. But that was at a company called Mallinckrodt Pharmaceuticals in the Midwest, where I was working at the radiopharmacy in the same town as our corporate headquarters, which made for a lot of great interactions with the corporate headquarters. So I got exposed to working with operations and marketing and R&D, and over time that opened up a career at the headquarters, moving into marketing, sales training, sales management, and ultimately commercial leadership on a global scale of the imaging businesses of Mallinckrodt, which was all well and good until we determined that my businesses were no longer a strategic fit with where the company was going. So I spent a few years carving out and selling off the businesses and used that opportunity to take my career in another direction. I wanted to be a part of helping a small company grow, use my business training and my technical expertise to add value in a different way. So I started working as an entrepreneur in residence for a local incubator. Loved it. Got exposed to a number of really interesting spinouts from Washington University, and came across KaloCyte at the time they were looking for their first CEO, and was encouraged to throw my hat in the ring. So I met first with Dr. Doctor. Was very intrigued by the technology. Spent time with the other founders and the growing team at that time to see, is there really a fit? Because it was important to both of us that there be not only a competency fit, but a style fit. Startups are, a lot of work, a lot of ups and downs, and takes a lot of time and dedication. And we all wanted to make sure that there was a good fit there for what we needed to do to take KaloCyte to market, and
I think
determined there was.
Yeah, it'd be really like remiss of me from me and MX's point of view of over the past few years. We've really had a focus on women in leadership within the life
Mhm.
sciences sector, and how challenging that can be, both in terms of opportunity and just the environment that women have to operate in, where it is still quite male dominated, even to this day. So just before I get into KaloCyte and the great work that's being done there, just at a personal level, what have been your experiences as a female leader in this industry?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Even going back to high school, I was fortunate to have, some of, like my favorite teacher in high school was my chemistry teacher, Judy Seidel, and she was amazing. So, that was my first exposure to female in a leadership position, and learned a tremendous amount from her. And, she really kind of inspired me to stick with the chemistry. And then when I was in pharmacy school, I think my class was one of the first that was 50% women.
Wow.
So I went through university in an environment where there were equal numbers of men and women. And, uh, that really um, gave me a setting where it just wasn't an issue.
Yeah, you could
So,
see,
I was
you could see it
yeah,
around you. Yeah.
I could see many of my professors, women in leadership positions at hospital pharmacies or community pharmacies or in research. And there's so many directions you can take a pharmacy degree that it was just really never an issue for me. And it really wasn't until later in my career when I was in a corporate setting, leading a marketing team, that it was much more male dominated in the sales leadership. And of course, the farther you go up the food chain there, many more men in leadership position than women. Still a few, but more men. But by that point, I mean, I'm already hardwired to, if I've got a question, if I don't understand something, I'm going to ask. It doesn't. I'm not intimidated by others with asking a question if I don't understand something, or if I have an idea or an opinion, I will make that known. So I just never felt,
Yeah.
other than, I'd look around the room and realize, "Whoa, I'm the only woman at the table. That's not great. How can I be a part of bringing others along?" So, yeah,
Sure.
use that as an opportunity to do some mentoring and,
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and I think
working on,
that's important.
diversity and inclusion councils and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's great. Bring it back to KaloCyte and
Mhm.
KaloCyte's mission. You've been involved for a number of years, and there's many milestones that have already been hit, and there's many more to hit moving forward. For people watching this, what's just at a top level, what is the problem, or the issues that KaloCyte as a business is positioned to try and solve?
Yeah. So KaloCyte means beautiful cell, and our mission is to develop an artificial red blood cell substitute for use when blood is not available. And the problem is that tens of thousands of patients and soldiers die unnecessarily simply because they don't get blood in time. They have injuries that are otherwise survivable if treated quickly, but their blood is not immediately available on hand, or it's hours away at a trauma center, or it's a mass casualty or a major transfusion protocol where there's simply not enough blood for that patient. So our mission is to have an alternative that can be carried on ambulances, carried in medic backpacks, stockpiled at emergency rooms and in regional stockpiles for mass casualty incidents or wartime needs. So we eliminate that issue. We've developed a system that has a shelf-stable, dried artificial blood substitute that can be stored on the shelf, and then when needed, you open it up, squeeze the bag to break a little seal between the dry component and the sterile water, mix it up, and very quickly have an oxygen carrier that can be transfused into a patient.
It's
So that's
incredible. Yeah.
it's it right. I mean, the first time I saw it, I was reading the grant application when I was starting to do some diligence on KaloCyte. And I thought, this is amazing. And I was looking for something that where I could have an impact not only on helping a team grow, but I wanted to work on a project and a product that was going to save lives. I didn't know what it was at the time, but when I saw what KaloCyte is working on, I said, yes, that's it. That's what I want to be a part of.
Yeah, I think not just in life sciences, but the world in general, whether it's technology and everything, we can overuse the word kind of groundbreaking or wow moments, but I think when we first spoke, when I first heard about the prototype, it genuinely was. It's like, wow, this is amazing. Even to, it's hard to take the science out of it, but when you see something
Mhm.
like that, it feels really simple. When I was speaking to Doctor
Yes.
Doctor about it, it's like the concept of the prototype you just showed there was
Mhm.
reminded me of my kids when they get kind of the glow sticks that are nothing, and then you break them,
Yes.
and then they light up.
Right.
It's very similar. It's it is incredible the journey that KaloCyte are on, and I know the animal trials, and Alan was talking about those brilliant moments when there was success within rats and rabbits, and then at a primate level, and obviously now we're really hoping we get to that human trial stage at some point down the line. But coming back to running a kind of a science-led business, and we found these challenges a lot with growing and startup biotechs, where there's where there's plenty of people who focus on the science, and then it's moving towards the business. How do you? And it obviously really helps that you have got that chemistry and that pharmacy kind of a background in that sense. But how do you balance that? Focus on the science and everything we need and carry on doing there with keeping commercial momentum, finding investment, which I know has happened, but it's an ongoing
Mhm.
thing. How do you balance that as CEO and president?
Yeah, so it can be challenging because it's all important, but I try to keep the main thing, and make sure that we're adequately staffed, adequately funded to support the mission. And I know that I've got a very talented team of scientists from entry level all the way to our most senior scientists and our co-founders that can help guide more of the scientific aspects. I try to do a couple of things. One, make sure that we're adequately funded. So that's top of mind for me all of the time. I am taking a little bit of a break from it at the moment simply because I've got a year runway. So I'm
Mm.
slightly pausing just on the investor intensity of focus for looking for new investors. Although you're never not
That,
fundraising. I've got that moving along for the moment. Grant funding, that has been a huge area of focus for
mm,
us. Is the non-dilutive funding that we've been awarded from NIH, DoD, and then most importantly, recently DARPA, to make sure that we've got not only the dollars coming in, but also the alignment and the support, and the milestones and the scrutiny to make sure that what we're developing is in alignment with the ultimate customer needs. So that has been critically important. And that guides the science then, because we have milestones that we have to hit. We have key performance indicators that we have to hit. We have safety metrics and performance attributes, and all of those are important and really shape the work that my team is doing. And then we just, we try to create a culture of excellence, but also an environment where the ideas can come from anyone on the team. And so, sometimes some of our best ideas come from some of our more junior scientists and early, folks that are early in their careers. Maybe they haven't been through as much problem solving or troubleshooting or getting into the routine of the lab, where they've got a fresh perspective and they say, "Oh, I just read an article. Could that be relevant here?" Or something that maybe they covered in university that they'll apply, or just being curious, which
that's the
is one of my
exact word I was
favorite
going to say.
attributes. Well, yeah, having that curiosity to say, well, what if we try this? And some of the folks that are later in their career may say, oh no, that would never work because X, Y, Z. And they say, well, if you want to give it a try, see if you learn something. And sure enough, we've had some really interesting and pivotal moments and learnings from from the team.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you talk there about the balancing the science and the commercial, and you said taking a year off from the investment. I'm saying off in inverted, it covers there because, like you say, the door is never shut there. But I think when you talk around the startup environment, whether it's in, a field like KaloCyte is operating in, tech field, whatever, is that I think the public perception from a layman's term is that it's all about the money. It's all about getting that funding and being able to shout about this amount of money that's funded. Do you feel like that quite a big misconception when you're building these in this startup world?
Well, clearly the money is important, and with in fact, with the amount of funding that we currently have, and having the length of a runway that we currently do, that affords us the ability to step on the accelerator and
Mm,
get in equipment, expand the team, like we're doing with me right
yeah,
now, to really advance the program. So yes, the money is critically important, but it's not the only thing. We've got to keep laser focus on what are we developing, and particularly with a therapeutic that is to be used in a trauma situation.
mm,
Safety is absolutely paramount, and it is
yeah,
the most important thing that we have to focus on. And particularly in our field with blood substitutes, you may be thinking, well, what's the competition? Or aren't there a bunch of other substitutes out there? There's not. And that's because blood is very complex. Attempts have been made in the past to develop a substitute, but they all failed, and primarily for safety and efficacy reasons. So if our
yeah.
product interferes with clotting or causes vasoconstriction and causes adverse events and side effects, we can't use it in a bleeding patient. So
Mm,
that's a deal killer for our product. So we have to surface all of the known and potential risks with our product now while we're in preclinical testing, be it through animal testing or in vitro assays and testing. Every single attribute that could interfere with the safety of a patient, we have to solve and surface and fix now.
yeah. It is that balance, isn't it? I think, like you say, you always need the funding for the next stage. But when it
Mhm.
boils down to it, if you get the science, the safety and everything right, that will come. And sometimes it's a patience thing, but if you're focused on that end, it will come because it solves obviously a much needed problem at scale. So yeah, that's great. You touched on building culture at KaloCyte and creating,
Yes.
this environment where everyone can have input. No one gets judged. It sounds like there's no bad ideas, bad comments, and things like that. But can you just talk a bit more about like the culture that has been built from very early days, but also that you're looking to build now in the future?
Yeah, and I'm incredibly proud of the culture and the team that we've built here. So we're currently 12. When I moved the team to Baltimore from St. Louis in 2019, we were two. So we've grown substantially, and we've had a few people along the way that have either moved on to bigger or different opportunities, or simply weren't a fit for the pace and the intensity and the environment that we have here. But what I've really enjoyed, particularly over the last couple of years with this team, is folks are mission focused.
Mm,
So they are here because they want to be a part of what we're working on, and
yeah,
they're intrigued by the science. So so they're in it for the right reasons. But also accountability is important. Resilience and tenacity is important, because we'll try 50 different variants of something to get one that is is workable. So you have to have some patience, but also some real stick to itiveness, but then also accountability. Things happen. You're gonna break a flask of material that's gonna set us back a couple of weeks, or you're going to pulled the wrong ingredient or expose a number. These things are going to happen. Human, we try to do multiple replicates and double, triple check work, but it's important that when there is a mistake made or an oversight, that we identify it and just take accountability for it, so we can move on and fix it. And, the team is gotten really good about that. We don't shoot the messenger. We try learn from the mistakes, and mistakes are going to happen, but let's not repeat the same mistakes over and over. Keep moving forwards. So that's been really important in just holding each other accountable for getting their part of the experiment or the data collection or analytics done. And we have fun along the way. We celebrate successes. We try to make it fun. Celebrate birthdays and just recognize success if we have a new IP filing or we finally crack an issue that's been bugging us or holding us back for a while. It's just very rewarding to be a part of that and seeing how people are developing and growing.
Well, you mentioned there that celebrating successes. I'm guilty of it here sometimes. When you're trying to create high performing teams and high performance cultures, is what the things that happen, you don't celebrate them enough because they don't feel that important when you've got quite high standards. But they are important for the individuals.
Mhm.
It's important to, celebrate the small moments because all of those small moments add up to hopefully a big moment. So I think that's key. Otherwise, it just becomes the job, and that can get quite monotonous quite quickly, can't it? I think so. As well as
Yes.
as well as the people kind of internally in the team, and look, at Meet and at MX, we're very grateful to be partnering with you as it is now. How important is it with those like external partnerships, whether it is
Mm.
somebody like us or your collaborations, or even like your investment partners down the line? How important is it to yourself and the wider KaloCyte team that there is alignment there with like the values and the culture that you mentioned?
That is critically important.
Yeah.
From an investor standpoint, I want investors that are not only there to write the checks, but are holding us accountable in our quarterly board meetings for those that are major investors or observers, asking questions, but also offering their insights and resources, their connections to other investors or other experts that can help us along the way. So that's very critical. And then as far as the partners, that's even more critical from
Mm.
an execution standpoint. So KaloCyte has a team and is doing the product and process development on an R&D lab scale, but we are reliant on other partners to help with a number of things. Some critical components that we can't make in-house, so either custom made components or things that we're buying off the shelf. Equipment, providers and vendors. We have some very complex analytical equipment and lyophilization equipment that needs to be maintained and upgraded and tweaked so it works with our process. And then I would say even more critical is our manufacturing partners. So as we're scaling up the manufacturing, which is what we're focusing on right now, getting ready to make product at scale and at GMP or GLP quality level that we can use first in our IND enabling studies for GLP toxicology, safety pharmacology, but then also getting us ready to make clinical batches for use in humans, which we hope to do within 2 years. So having a partner that can work with you on tech transfer, method development, scale up, and execution is absolutely critical. So we put a lot of emphasis on regular meetings, building relationships with our external teams and partners as well.
Yeah, it's making your partners feel, part of the journey and the development, isn't it? And yeah, it, it's like feel good things. I think, I certainly
Mhm.
think it from Meet's perspective here is however big or small the part is like playing a part in the development of something like you guys are creating is incredible. I just want to end with a very cliche, like I'd be interviewing you for a job here, and you mentioned the 2 years, what kind of
Mhm.
success looks like. But what does, if I take the beyond the obvious of
Mhm.
human trials and commercialization, that is kind of, it feels like a given. But for
Mhm.
you, and for the KaloCyte kind of team, what does that success look like in 2, 3, however many years, really?
Yeah, so obviously getting into the clinic,
Yeah,
and getting a product through the clinic is our main focus. But beyond the initial version of erythromer, we have ideas and initial proof of concept work for other indications. We're looking at use of erythromer in a canine application for military working dogs and companion animals, use as a therapeutic for sickle cell crisis, use to oxygenate organs for transplant in an ex vivo transfusion support system. So, there's a lot of other applications that we want to develop, alternatives to sourcing our hemoglobin. Right now, we're developing that from outdated units of donor blood. Ultimately, though, for scale, we want to grow our own hemoglobin, recombinant hemoglobin from yeast fermentation. So, yeah, growing our own. So there's no shortage of additional things that we want to do to support the product and expand beyond that. So I would say what good looks like is we either expand funding, potential partnerships, potential acquisitions, or licensing of select products, developing a manufacturing platform that allows us to make this at scale for use globally, and getting it out to save patients.
yeah. Incredible. I think it's a definite, just keep an eye on everything that you're doing. Like you say, there's plenty of applications out. People not even aware that this is an option, and can probably all relate or come up with a use case for for what's being produced here, which is quite unusual within like the life sciences space. Everything, quite a lot of stuff is kind of unseen. It's a pill format or something like that, and no one can kind of really get it. But for good or bad reasons, people know what blood is, and
Mhm.
most people have experienced a loss of blood at different levels, and things. I think it's incredible work that you're doing, and I really appreciate taking some time to explain, both your own personal journey and what KaloCyte are trying to achieve. So thank you very much.
Yes, thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to seeing the interviews with our other founders and continuing to work with me.